Continuing debate, the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and as always, it's an honour to be able to stand in the People's House and to talk about the issues that are so important to them. And I appreciate also the opportunity to have had a couple of questions to that previous member who, if I could sum up, basically said, when I questioned what are very legitimate questions about the plan that they have presented to Canadians, they simply say, don't worry about it, just trust us and we'll take care of it, so there's no need to discuss it any further. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, but that's not how democracy works. That's not how this place works. And I would suggest that that's part of the reason that why over the last 9 years of this Liberal government we have seen a litany of failures. A litany of failures on virtually everything that Prime Minister, that government, and propped up by their coalition partners in the NDP, virtually everything they have tried to accomplish, there is scandal, there is failure, there is a series of broken promises that go along with it. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing an erosion of trust in our institutions, outcomes for Canadians being decreased, and at every step of the process, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing that Canadians are worse off today than they were when that Prime Minister was first elected in 2015 on all these fluffy promises with zero substance. So, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the bill that we have before us, this is simply another example of that. And I would suggest that when it comes to, in fact, I will take us on a little bit of a journey, if you would allow me, Mr. Speaker, because during the 2021 election, the election that the Prime Minister said would not happen but did anyways, and we all know what that is. And then during that election, Conservatives said very clearly that a vote for the Liberal Party was a vote for a coalition. We said that during that election. Yet it was both the Liberals and the NDP said that would never happen. There will be no agreement. There's no chance, is their words, is what they would say. In fact, the media even started criticizing Conservatives for suggesting that that would be the case. Yet it was only a number of months after the election in 2021 where we saw this so-called confidence and supply agreement that is really just a very poorly negotiated coalition agreement. Because what ultimately we see is that the NDP gave away any bargaining power that they could have had in the context of a minority parliament and just gave carte blanche to a Liberal Prime Minister and his government to do with that power what they wanted, and there the NDP are backing them up every step of the way. So then we have seen over the last 2 years or so where the consequence of that is a series of poor public policy outcomes where they stand up and will peacock all day long about the success that they are showing and the work that they're doing for Canadians and whatnot. Yet when you look into the details, you see that it is some of the most shallow policy outcomes that I would suggest, Mr. Speaker, have a very, very small chance of even being actualized when it comes down to it. Because and the joke that I've heard from a number of constituents, so I'll share it with you, Mr. Speaker, is that George Strait song about having some oceanfront property in Arizona. It's certainly the sort of sale that it seems like those New Democrats would be quick to sell anything, would be quick to buy anything that these Liberals are offering, specifically when it comes to pharmacare. It's very, very relevant to the conversation because it was at the last New Democrat convention where members...
Point of order. Member from...
Well, I think you need an appropriateness of quoting lyrics, and I like George Strait, but it would be more credible if he was actually accurate. It would be Simon and Garfunkel.
Carry on. Debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I can assure you that this House nor any Canadian wants to hear me sing. So I will spare both members of this House and Canadians that. But, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that it was when
Point of order.
Point of order is that the member for Timmins James Bay is himself out of order when he raises these irrelevant points about the lyrics. The sole purpose of this is to interrupt the remarks of others. It is shameful. He ought to apologize to the House for his shameful behavior. It's consistently shameful behavior, which is an embarrassment.
Point of order. Timmins James Bay.
Apologize to my honourable colleague that his own backbench is interrupting him while he's trying to make sense of something that is unsensible. No wonder he wants to interrupt.
Kingston in the aisle. Actually, if you want.
Point of order, the Honourable Parliamentary, or the Deputy House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, while in this chamber, it was audible by everybody here. The member from Lanark Frontenac Kingston referred to the member from James Bay as a moron. I would suggest that you would ask that he withdraws that comment because that was extremely unparliamentary. He should apologize as well, too, directly to the member.
The Honourable Member for Lanark Frontenac Kingston.
I welcome the opportunity to withdraw the remarks, and I do deeply apologize to the member for Timmins James Bay, who is indeed the model for decorum for all of us here, who sets the standard for all of us, along with the member from Kingston and the Islands, who...
Okay, no, I'll accept it as it has been said. So I step out for 2 seconds, and the whole thing goes there. The Honourable Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I find it very interesting that all of a sudden when I start talking about the record and the failures specifically of the NDP, all of a sudden they are quick to cause disorder. Well, I would suggest that it is the embarrassment of their record that truly is what offends those New Democrats and how they seem to be so quick to buy anything that that Liberal Prime Minister is selling. And I will outline specifically why that, the definitive proof of why that is in fact the case, because when those New Democrats late last year had a convention, they drew a line in the sand. It was a line in the sand saying they will get out of that coalition agreement, they will not have confidence in the leader from Burnaby South, that they will say that that is enough, they do not want anything to do with those Liberals and this coalition confidence and supply nonsense if they cannot get the job done. What was the first thing that the leader of the New Democratic Party did, Mr. Speaker? Well, it was he paused. It was he paused and said, well, you know, we need simply more time. We're working out the details of what that might look like. And then there were some very concerning allegations about changing some of the electoral system and whatnot. And then we see that there were some red lines that certainly members of that party talked a lot about how they were going to have this fulsome program that was going to be announced and it was going to solve every Canadian's problem. There was going to be no issues with it. And then what was announced? Well, I would suggest that if you were to catch any of those New Democratic members off camera, they would be sorely disappointed about the work that the member from Burnaby South did in so-called the negotiations that led to the program that we have here today, that covers little, costs lots, and truly has many unanswered questions about whether the benefit will be actualized to Canadians who actually need it. And Mr. Speaker, I think that that is the proof point that this NDP party is interested in nothing more than the photo ops and the illusion that they can have simply a communications plan. And Mr. Speaker, it is truly a sad state of affairs when you have such laziness in the form masquerading as public policy. And I would suggest that this debate that we are having before us, Mr. Speaker, is proof point. And this offends those New Democrats. Well, a party that was built upon an idea that there should be, and in fact, it was interesting because when you look back at the history of the CCF and many involved with that, there was a true desire to see that people, that the social gospel movement is much of the driving force behind the history of why that party even started. Yet they have abandoned those.
Point of order, the Honourable Member from Pickering Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I find it interesting that the member opposite seems to be obsessed with the NDP and has not yet spoken on the pharmacare legislation at hand, so I'd ask that he gets irrelevant.
The relevance is a point of order. Actually, it's the best one we had so far today. Let's stick to the bill before us. The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
So again, Mr. Speaker, it is interesting how when calling out the failures of the NDP, it not only offends New Democrats, but it offends Liberal members of Parliament. Parliament. It truly is telling of the level of absurdity that this place has descended into when simply calling out the failures of this so-called confidence and supply agreement, this coalition, this poorly negotiated agreement that has propped up one of the most corrupt governments in Canadian history, and they are so offended when you would even bring forward some things, including talking about some of the history of what built those parties. And to that member specifically, I will be happy to address some of the failures that are specific to the Liberal Party here in short order, but it seems that they don't want to hear those things because they're rather simply offended that somebody would dare question their preeminence.